Nicole Moon joins us on the same time zone as me. Where are you, Nicole?
I'm in Burlington, Vermont.
You've got, what have you got flying around outside?
There's F-35s right outside my office.
Wow. So what is it? Are you next to a runway or?
Yeah, it's a Burlington International Airport, and they have like a Black Hawk facility, and they have some F-35s over there too.
Nice. So what's going on in the office? What do you do for a living?
I have a commercial real estate brokerage company that I've owned for maybe 15 years. So
Fantastic. So you've got a bit of time now. You're okay to speak to me for a little bit?
yeah, should be good.
So Nicole, the good thing is, I mean, you cover all the bases almost in air sports. I mean, you're a skydiver, you're a base jumper, you are a balloon pilot, you are a paraglider, you do some speed flying as well.
Yep.
You just don't fly helicopters yet.
Not yet, but hopefully soon.
So you see, where do we start then? Let's find out how it all began for you. When did all this love affair with the sky begin? Take us all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah, so I've only been flying since 2015 is
really?
when I got my A license skydiving.
Yeah.
And I guess I thought it was kind of crazy at first. You know, I had a friend who said, "Oh, you should try skydiving," and I was like, yeah, that sounds really kind of crazy, but you know, thanks for the offer. And then I talked to my dad, who there's somebody that he works with who was a skydiver. So he asked, I asked him, well, what do you think? And he kind of like closed the door in my office and he said, well, I went and it was awesome, but you know, I haven't told your mom yet. So he said, I have a great idea, and we'll say that you want to go, and then we'll tell your mom that I have to go with you, and then we can both go together. And I was like, okay, I guess I didn't, you know, so he said it was amazing. And I was like, I guess if he did it, I got to try it. So, so then I think that was in 2015, I went and I just totally fell in love with flying. Yeah. And then from there, you know, I think I've made almost 2,500 jumps in 5 years and counting. Yeah. So, yeah.
So your father did a tandem without telling your mother?
Yes, he did.
And you didn't know either?
Nobody knew. And just by chance, I had asked him about skydiving. And so he had to tell me how much fun it was and how much he loved it.
Fantastic. Where was it? Where did you go and do your first one?
We were in, so it's called the Malone Parachute Club, which is about 5 minutes from the Canadian border in a town called Swanton, Vermont.
Yeah. So we're not too far away from each other. I'm in Montreal right now. You're in Vermont.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think it's about an hour and a half for me to get to Montreal. And actually, when I first started flying, that was the tunnel that was closest tunnel to me is in Montreal. So I would drive across the border, you know, every week or every other week to try to get some flying in the tunnel up there.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait for the tunnel to reopen. I can't wait for the border to reopen, explore the States a little bit. So you started skydiving, you've done 2,500 jumps so far.
Yes.
Were you doing any ballooning or anything else before that?
No, I had never had done any kind of air sports until then. So yeah, since then, and it was like, I'm trying to think. So I went speed riding when I had about 130 jumps or something like that. Yeah. And I had never even heard of paragliding. Yeah. And so then I learned what all these things were. And I went to France. So I was like skiing with the parachute over my head. And I had never been so scared in my whole life. But also, you know, when I landed, I had never had so much fun either. Right. So I kept doing that and then took some paragliding and got a P2. And then I think I'm trying to think. So, and then I started base jumping. So, you know, and then that, you know, kind of, and then I don't even know why. I just thought it would be fun to get my hot air balloon pilot license. Actually, I was supposed to go to France last March when everything shut down. And I had like 2 weeks scheduled where I was going to go speed riding and I was super excited. And then we couldn't get into Europe. So I called my friend and I said, well, what are you doing? And he said, well, my trip to Mexico got canceled, so I'm doing nothing. And I was like, well, why don't I come to Utah and you can teach me how to fly hot air balloons? So then we did that. And so instead of going to France, I ended up going to Utah and getting my hot air balloon pilot license in March of 2020.
That's absolutely incredible. So from 2015, you've got yourself involved in all these aspects of flying. That's absolutely unreal. I don't think I've ever known anybody to pick up so much so quick.
I love to fly.
Yeah. I mean, all of us do, but I'm absolutely astounded that you've got around so much of it. It's incredible. You must have so many amazing stories already built up over that short period of time. You know, what about your first base jumping? Where were you going base jumping?
So I went to the Prime Bridge, and Miles Dasher was my coach. I signed up for a course with him, and I remember, I think at the time I had like 350 skydives, and I think I wanted to try everything just to see what I liked the most.
Right.
And I went to the bridge and I did 15 jumps in 5 days with Miles, and it scared the hell out of me. I was like, well, I think, he said to me, well, what are your plans? And I was like, I think what I'm going to do is go make a lot more skydives, do a lot more flying, and then come back to see you again. Yeah. So I did 15 other jumps in California as well, just after that course. And then I decided I'm not, doing one jump every month isn't staying current enough. Yeah. So I kind of hung the base canopy up for a while. And then last June of 2020, I went back to see Miles with a lot more skydiving and flying experience. And then I was much better under my canopy when, because when you only have a couple 100 feet to land, you really need to know how to use your canopy. So I felt a lot more confident then. And now I have like maybe 300 base jumps since then. So
incredible. What are you doing with your skydiving?
Right now I've been working on doing the big wave formations. I really hope to be on the Project 19 women's record that's coming up either at the end of this year or sometime next year with the 101 or 102 women. So that's really what I'm shooting for. I've done a couple of state records here and there, vertical flying. And then like last weekend, I was at a camp in Chicago doing 2 planes, maybe like 35 to 40 skydivers on each jump, and just trying to get used to that many people in the sky and keeping my flying skills going even when I'm a little bit nervous.
Fantastic. What an inspiration. Absolutely brilliant. And the paragliding, I spoke to many skydivers who during the lockdown and during COVID became paragliders. And it's interesting, the kind of similarity stops from having a canopy and lines. There's not really that much of a similarity that I've been told when you start paragliding. It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a much more sensitive wing. So I started paragliding when I had maybe, 200 skydives. And I remember because the instructor's in your ear when you first start, and I would like hit the brakes and it's like the thing just is so responsive. And he's like, what are you doing? You just need to weight shift. And I'm like, oh, you don't have to pull the toggle all the way down to your waist. I didn't realize. Right. And then, also it's like because the wing is built to go up, so it's huge and it's very temperamental. So any kind of like wind, is felt a lot more. Yeah. It's a lot more sensitive, I guess, the wing is. So it's definitely something. Oh, hold on.
Hey,
sorry, that was another phone call coming in. But anyway, so that I had to get used to that. And now, you just have to be really aware of which wing you're under.
Yeah, right. Hey.
Yeah.
And your paragliding, are you still keeping yourself current with it?
I not like recently, I haven't been doing a ton of paragliding. I think mostly I've been base jumping actually lately, and then doing some of the big wave skydiving stuff. So I'm trying to think of the last time I flew was probably like in maybe February of 2020 or something like that, under my paraglider. I had done a bunch of stuff and gone to Chile. Actually, that was incredible. I went with Paraglide New England, who's there's a friend of mine in this area of the country, and he organized the trip, and we flew. It was like in 8 days, 16 hours or more. It was like, you could fly all day if you wanted, but I was like, I'm hungry. I need to come down and take a break. Yeah. So it was really pretty amazing experience, because around here, the winds are really temperamental and there are trees everywhere. And there it's like perfect winds all the time and sand dunes everywhere. Yeah. So it was pretty neat to be able to do that. And actually that was when the riots were happening in Chile. And so like at certain times we were flying our paragliders over like thousands of people just rioting in the streets. Oh. And it was pretty incredible. When we had gotten there, we didn't realize that was happening. I don't think it had started until we got there. And then by the time we left, they had like burned all these things in the town we were staying in. And we got to see some of the riots. I preferred to be above them than in the streets with them. But it was pretty cool.
Wow. So I'm just thinking on the top of my head now, these 3 different styles of canopies, with skydiving. Well, 4 really. You got your speed wing, your skydiving canopy, your base jumping canopy, and your paraglider. And I suppose that there's a comparison between the base canopy and the skydiving canopy. A lot less time under canopy, of course, but the speed wing. So you've got these 4 different types of flight, and they almost have their own special attraction to you. Do you get much enjoyment with a base jump canopy flight, or are you just kind of getting yourself safely where you want to be?
A little bit of both, but I mean, the thing about the base jumping that I love the most is almost every time you jump, there's a spectacular view of some kind, and it's different. So I love, when the canopy ride is super short, it's you enjoy it, but you're really focused on what you're doing. But I've had some where, it's like a longer canopy ride, and it's pretty spectacular to be under this huge boat, and you just have plenty of time to kind of figure out, where to go. And you're not when you're not worried about any of that stuff, it can be pretty incredible under that canopy.
You sound like a really focused, strong business type of person. Did you find yourself getting spiritual, emotional sensations with flight, with any parts of it, or none of it?
I mean, I think like I've always loved it so much, like the first time that I even went skydiving, it was like, I couldn't believe that as a human being, you can do this. Right. I didn't really know any of it was possible. And I think, it's sort of given me an appreciation. I like my work more. I like everything that I do just a little bit more, because I have this passion that drives me to kind of really love my life. So for sure, all of it has brought that to me and continues to. Every experience I have is just like another kind of piece to the puzzle. And I think for sure you realize when you step off the edge of a cliff or a bridge, even a little bit more so than when skydiving, because you're so close to the ground, that it's a pretty incredible thing that we're able to do. And you have a lot of appreciation for your life and all the things in it.
Yeah. I mean, with COVID and all the lockdowns, I didn't jump for quite a few months, and I've only recently got back in the sky, and I can feel a massive difference. I feel like I've been like a weight's gone off my shoulders, like a big plug's been released. I feel refreshed and recharged.
Totally. Yeah, it is. It's a huge outlet, I think, for a lot of people, and that was why I think for me, when COVID hit, I did the hot air balloon piloting, and I started base jumping, because there wasn't very much skydiving happening, but I could go to the bridge and hike and jump, and nobody could tell me that I couldn't do that, so I could still kind of get my fix and keep my mind clear. And then kind of just recently I've started doing a lot more skydiving again, and it's like, oh, I forgot how much I love this too. And it's nice. It's really nice to have 2 parachutes on your back instead of just one.
Brilliant. And the ballooning, how long did that process take to get your license? I don't really know much about the license.
It kind of depends on you, but essentially you have to take a test you know, like it's required by the FAA before you even fly. So I had to study, for me, I studied for maybe like a week, and then I took the test. And then if you pass with like an 80 something or more, I think it's an 80 or more, then you can fly, and you must fly 10 hours, but you have to pass the flying test. So there's like the written test, and then there's a flying test. And in between those two, there's a test from the DPE, who's like the head instructor who's signing you off to do like a verbal test. So he makes sure that you didn't just pass that as a fluke, you kind of knew what you were doing. So it was like all of those things. So it took me about, I would say, so I took the test, took about a week to study for that. And then I flew to Utah, and it took me about 12 days to complete the flying. And it really depends on weather. And then I had flown so many different wings. I understood about the winds, and I understood about how this huge envelope is probably going to react. And so it was like, that actually came fairly easy to me, although I still don't completely trust myself to go. I still have a friend who has a lot more piloting experience than me that usually I go with, even though I could go by myself. I figure somebody with 6,000 hours versus somebody with 20 hours, it's probably better suited.
Exactly. I mean, I've done a bit of ballooning with other people, and one thing that really blew my mind from a skydiving background, the pilot was saying, you know, we're going to try for this little field, and it was a small field, and there was no outs, and there was power cables and trees, and my skydiving mind is like, there's not enough room, we can't do it. And then we're trying to get into this field, and we're like maybe, I don't know, 5 feet off the ground, and he says no, and then we'll just come back out again. I was like, whoa, we can come back out. You're not committed, you know, you can try, and then no, we'll go back out and go try somewhere else. That blew my mind.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, I've had like some really like magical experiences flying a balloon, and you can contour, you know, so you're like down on the fields, just like touching the top of the crops, and then you blast back up, and then you like, we landed, or not landed, but like touched down on top of this building, and then down into the parking lot. And as long as the winds are calm, it's really pretty incredible. It's, you know, it's like a magic carpet ride. But then I've had an experience where, you know, we took off and it was 2-mile-an-hour winds, and then we went to land and it was like 17. So that was the first experience I had where I was like, this is a very serious thing. And you can't really gauge, because you don't know when exactly certain, you know, environmental factors are going to play. It was like in one town, it was fine. And then 2 towns over, based on, must have been the geography and all those things, that it was just a totally different experience. So that was sort of like, you know, I had all these like magical, wonderful experiences, and that one I was like, holy smokes, like this is really can be a very serious thing in the wrong conditions.
Wow. I mean, for me, I've always had a thing about heights. I'm not very comfortable being high up things, even though I'm a skydiver for 30 years. And one of the first balloon flights, as we were just lifting off, it was just so quiet and we're getting higher. I felt my legs a little bit jellified. I was kind of just holding the basket a little bit too tight. It's very strange, isn't it? You know, when you certain forms of aviation, you can have no problem with, and then other things can be a little bit. Do you ever get anything like that? Any height sensation or not?
Oh, for sure. I mean, especially when I'm base jumping at the edge of a cliff, I get really nervous. And it's so silly. It's like you're about to jump off this thing. But for some reason, as soon as I get out there, it's a different thing than standing up there and looking over that edge without being actually over it and flying. So, yeah, I mean, you know, at the bridge, it happens. Like I'll stand up sometimes on the rail, and then a truck will come by, and it's like, oh God, it's like, you're going to jump. Why are you scared? But it's just like a feeling of maybe being out of control a little bit, or it's just a human instinct. To not really like want to be at the edge of a cliff. We don't have wings.
Very straight. Every now and again, very, very rarely, I'll be under canopy, just setting up, and I'll suddenly just kind of look down and go, oh, very, very rarely, and I just suddenly realize I'm held by my leg straps, and you know, it's very, very rare, but once every few years I get that thing. So what have you got going on? You've got some kind of a fundraising thing happening right now, haven't you, Nicole?
I did do a fundraiser for the McConkey Foundation. So when was it? In October of 2020, I did a base jumping record. So there were no women that had any base jumping records in the Guinness book, or that I had, known at the time. So I thought it was the 100-year anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which gave women our right to vote. So since Project 19 was sort of on hold, I thought it would be cool to do something in honor of all the women and men that got that passed. So I did like a 12-hour, let's see. So the most base jumps in 12 hours powered by human ascent. So it was like, I had to hike up every time and just, make as many jumps as I could within a 12-hour period. So I think the minimum they would require would be 28 jumps. I ended up doing 37, and it was like hiking 18,000 vertical feet in 12 hours. So it was pretty intense day. It took me, about a week to kind of recover. But it was, it was super cool. I had a team of people that were far more experienced than me. And, without them, none of it would have been possible. So that was a really cool experience to be a part of, and to have a lot of people that really had my back.
That's such a big day. What was the hardest part? There must have been some down points in there where you were, feeling like you couldn't do anymore. What was the down parts?
Yeah. So, the thing for me, like during the event, I had no question in my mind, like you're just going to put one foot in front of the other and keep going. But the process of it was for sure a little more trying. When I showed up to the bridge and it's like 3,700 feet, I'm coming from sea level. I think I did maybe 10 jumps and hikes on the first day that I was there. One of the jumps, like the rig sliced in between my gums and my lip. And it was like, I was by myself and I'm like, maybe I should just go home. And it was sort of like, some of those. So in some of the training days, like the 20 jump days, it's still hiking 10,000 feet in one day. And it's pretty exhausting to do that with 30 pounds on your back. Because I did like 140 training jumps in a little bit less than 30 days to prepare for the event. And then took the 2 days off and then did the 37. So I think the training was like mentally the hardest part for me, is like to keep motivated, to get out there every morning, no matter how good or bad you felt, and just to keep charging, knowing like this is going to happen. And then to be nervous, like, can I do it? Is it possible? Right. Or is my body going to say, no way, this is not a good idea?
Oh, I can't believe it. I'm out of breath pulling on my G3 and then climbing up the steps into the Twin Otter and putting the seatbelt on. I'm done. I need those 15 minutes to come back from that. But climbing that, wow, what a climb. Oh, there she goes again. Another call. Sorry. That's all right. Boy. You're back.
There it is.
Wow. So how many practice days did you do, Nicole?
30. So I had like 30 days where I drove to Idaho, and then I had like a full training schedule that I was going to do. Yeah. And it was like 30 days, or I think 29 training days, 2 days off, and then to go to the event. So that was sort of my plan. Right.
Wow. So what have you got planned? What's coming up for you?
So next, I think I'm working on a trip to Italy to do some tracking off of some big cliffs, which I've never done. And then just keep working on my vertical flying and see if I can get on some of those records with the, the bigger players in the free fly game.
Incredible stuff. Have you got one eye on all this commercial space flight, which is happening at the moment? Would that be something which would be interesting to you, to do a low orbit, to get up there if you could find yourself the ticket?
If I could, for sure. Anything to fly, I'll do it.
Yeah, fantastic. Nicole, it's been an absolute real blast and a pleasure to catch up with you, to find out about what you've got going on. And I wish you all the success and a great season coming up, and good luck. And I'm sure you'll be on the record, and I wish you all the best for it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Take care.
All right. Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.